Hello, this is Geotech Land, and today I'm going to be talking about online censorship. The online world is now more popular than ever, and although you can find all kinds of different content, there is a growing concern that these platforms are being controlled by powerful companies. They have the ability to decide which content or creators are allowed on their platform and which ones are not. They can prioritize certain content and deprioritize other kinds of content. And while I do understand that these companies tend to be private companies or shareholder/publicly owned companies, they do have the ability to moderate the content as they see fit. But the online world is very much like a public square, and they can cast aside other content or creators from the public square. That to me is a big deal. So what can we do as the average online user? There's a lot of different things we could do, some more effective than others. So let's take a look. If you're enjoying my video, you can subscribe to me on YouTube, PeerTube, follow me on Odyssey. You could also support me on LiberaPay, Patreon, and by shopping at Earth Hero. See links in the description below. I first want to address a big misconception out there. There's a lot of people that feel that these capitalist institutions are leftist or liberal, and they're on a mission to ban conservatives or just in general right-wing ideology or free speech advocacy on the platforms. From my experience, that doesn't appear to be the case at all. When you look at YouTube, for example, there's still a lot of very prominent conservatives like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Jordan Peterson. They're doing well. They've got millions of subscribers. Two more prominent individuals that did get booted off the platform are Alex Jones and Stefan Molyneux. I believe that YouTube genuinely believed that Alex Jones and Stefan Molyneux were causing harm on their platform. Whether I agree or disagree about them causing harm is not the point. There's also been many cases of these companies banning left-wing pages and individuals. One example is the progressive channel The Serfs, who got banned for making a video about Paul Joseph Watson. Thankfully, their channel was restored, but this just goes to show you that it's not just one political side that's getting banned on these platforms. In terms of users getting banned, again, I don't think they're targeting anyone specifically. In my experience, especially on YouTube and Twitter, it seems like they're censoring based on certain keywords, especially like a lot of curse words. On YouTube, I get all kinds of comments, right? The ones that use like the most vitriolic language, I tend to notice that I'll get the notifications on YouTube like with those comments, but then when I go and try to reply to them, a lot of them end up disappearing. Not all of them, but it seems like the majority of them just disappear. I don't know if YouTube is just censoring the comments or they're banning the users themselves. Sometimes some of their comments will get stuck in the spam, and then they'll ask me if I want to allow. Most of the time I allow, unless they post some link to some shady website. But that's kind of the censorship that I've experienced or I've seen on one of my Twitter profiles. I ended up commenting on someone's post, and I included a quote of something they said that included the word stupid in there. And I got curious and I checked a different browser and checked my comment, and it was nowhere to be found. You could ultimately find the comment or the tweet, but you had to click on the show more or show hidden comments or tweets. So overall, I don't think they're banning based on a certain ideology. A lot of my videos don't get that many views, especially some videos that seem controversial. Maybe this won't get that many views, but ironically, some of my best videos are the top YouTube alternatives. One of them over like 50 or 60K views, and so that's pretty interesting. So I wanted to dispel that myth that it's a bunch of leftists or liberals banning conservatives on these platforms, because I don't think that's true. Why am I so concerned with online censorship if I believe that these platforms are just kind of doing what they think is best? I still just don't trust these companies to moderate content. I think ultimately, if not now, it's a slippery slope into banning content that I really don't think needs to be banned or deprioritized. We just want to make sure that these platforms don't have as much power as they do. And so what's one of the ways we could fight back? Well, The first way is that we can complain about it on these same platforms. Obviously, these platforms are very popular, and I think calling them out on their own platforms sometimes has worked. Like I mentioned before, a lot of times the video will get demonetized for no real good reason. One of them, for example, was the Surfs TV. They released a video criticizing Steven Crowder, and their video got banned or demonetized. And YouTube told them that, hey, you didn't do a good enough job criticizing Steven Crowder's beliefs or ideas. And then they went to point out that, hey, Steven Crowder makes videos on your platforms. Like, why is their video not banned, but my video criticizing is banned? Calling them out on their platforms can sometimes be effective because, again, there's so many people using these platforms and no one wants to get called out on their platform. You'll kind of force them to do a better job in moderating content. But of course, that I think is the weakest way to hold these companies and institutions accountable. The other one is an obvious one, is to support and divest to other alternatives. So there's alternatives like Odyssey is a good one, Nebula, and by having your content there and trying to grow these other companies, it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. It takes away market share from YouTube. And, if someone were to get removed off from YouTube, they can always go on to a new platform. So that's another way we can fight back. I would support an alternative company that's trying to compete with YouTube. I still would worry though that these companies would then just turn their backs on their users once they get at a certain level. We saw this with a company like OnlyFans. They got popular because of certain creators, and then when they wanted to be more sustainable or please their payment processors, they decided to turn their backs on them and ban a lot of the content that got them famous. Because they're private companies, their priority is to make money first more than anything. And so that's always something you got to be mindful of and careful for. These companies, they can always sell to another bigger company, and make a lot of money doing so. And then there's another larger company that has say or control over the content. So I would take this a step further and say, if you can, I prefer that you support not a company, but maybe a community or a nonprofit, something that is largely funded by the users. Not just something that is funded by the users, but that the users have more of a say, not necessarily a for-profit company. You have less ambitions to want to grow and expand and sell yourself to another company. I would take this even one step further, and it would be better to support decentralized nonprofits or community-funded websites. Now, why is decentralization important? Well, everyone can agree that illegal content should be banned. When it comes to indirect threats of violence or things that we think cause social harm, I feel like there's a lot of room for disagreement. And so the best thing to do is to have many different communities with their own rules, but on a common platform. So an example is Mastodon. Mastodon is software that lets you build a social network that's very similar to Twitter. And while a lot of the creators of Mastodon probably have many disagreements with the creators of Gab, they're both using the Mastodon platform. And so you can have many different Mastodon websites or communities that, vary in their moderation. The preference, again, is that these are funded entirely by the communities or by the users that have accounts on their websites. It makes it so that the online community is more democratized. And so if I like a website's rules, I can say, hey, you know what? I really like their rules. These rules make sense. I'm going to support their platform and have an account there. And if they do something I don't like, or if they just completely reverse on their policies, I can always take my accounts, I can take my followers, take my following, and move on to a different platform with different rules. And of course, if enough people leave that community, the funding for that website might not be in good shape. So again, it makes it so that these websites are accountable to us, to the people funding them. And so that's why I prefer supporting decentralized communities that are not private companies. I'm not saying that this solution is necessarily perfect. In a lot of cases, you may like a community or maybe multiple communities with very different rules. The worst case scenario is that you might have to make an account on maybe one or two websites, but if they're largely going to use the same platform, then you're going to get a very similar experience. I want the online communities to be more democratized and owned by the users. Kind of sounds very leftist, socialist, doesn't it? Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my video, please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.